Good morning and welcome to NFTs Live. I'm your host, Tyler D. It is Monday, November 29th. We are back after taking the Thanksgiving holiday weekend off from the show. I'll be honest, it felt like an eternity to be away, but I'm definitely recharged and ready to talk NFTs. And we have a lot to cover. On today's show, we're going to hit from a top news standpoint, OpenSea volume and the macro view of the market. Then we're going to talk Blau and A16Z backed Royal and some music NFT news. Then we're going to talk the Adidas collab with Bored Apes and Punk's Comic. Then we'll go into our market recap, hit the Lucky Trader 7-day view, and then IC on the 3-day to show the weekend. Then we're going to go around the horn on our typical segments with one-of-ones, blue chip PFPs, and art blocks. We're going to preview today's curated drop Bent. Then we're also going to highlight the upcoming artifact drop Clone X. And then we're going to end with the people's story. Sound good? Let's go. All right, let's start with our top news. We're going to take a look at the OpenSea metrics here from our handy Dune Analytics dashboard. I'm going to take a look at a few of the different charts. Let's go ahead and start with our monthly volume view. So as we take a look at November, we're coming in at 2.2 billion or so here with just about a day and a half left to go. So it's going to be below October. As we take a look, from August peak mania, we are stair-stepping down a bit in monthly volume. I think there's a few reasons for that. Certainly one that isn't talked about that much is just the addition of other sites. A lot of the NFT trader sites that are out there that are taking away from some of the pure volume. But if we zoom out and take a look at where we were back in March, it's still up 15x from the volume that we were seeing just 6-7 months ago. As we take a look at the daily view here in the top right, I was curious how the Thanksgiving week was going to hold up. It actually held up okay, and we'll see that reflected in the 7-day. Led by a lot of the Wolf Game and Wolf Game clones, as well as some big new drops. But again, from the BAYC surge that we had just a few weeks ago, we are still here trending down a bit. And it is to be seen what happens after the big Clone X drop here today. I'm going to scroll down a few other charts I want to highlight. So total OpenSea traders over time, we have eclipsed 700,000, coming in at about 709,000 here. A huge number, and continues just to go purely totally parabolic there in that graphic. Then the last one I'll highlight here is in the Polygon data. So if we look at OpenSea Polygon and their monthly volume, actually at the highest number. So their November will set the record for Polygon volume at 55 million or so here with a day and a half left in the month. Certainly makes sense for those who've been interacting on the Ethereum platform and know the gas fees. So that is certainly a big driver for users to head over to Polygon. And we can see some of their biggest record-setting days here really just in the last week or so. So good for Polygon. All right, well, that's a quick view of the macro market. Let's get into some more specific stories here. Number 2, so Royal welcomes the Chainsmokers, Nas, Logic, and Kygo as investors and announces a $55 million Series A round led by A16Z to build the future of music ownership. So Royal is described as a platform that allows anyone to purchase the right to earn royalties from their favorite songs. We've talked about some of the big name investors in this project. I want to talk a little bit about this proof of concept that they did here. So last month, Royal proved his concept by using Blau, who gave away 333 limited digital assets, essentially Royal's version of an NFT. And that NFT represented 50% streaming ownership in Blau's latest single, Worst Case. So within 2 weeks of that drop, the song reached an implied value of over $6 million with those NFT holders, then holding 50% of that value. And the tokens have traded over $650,000 in secondary fees. And this article goes on to talk a little bit more about the vision for Royal and the marketplace. My takeaway here is we've known music NFTs could be and are going to be big, but we really haven't seen the right model play out yet. With respect to giving users perks like concert or tickets or that type of thing. But I think ownership could very well be the niche that takes music NFTs into the next stratosphere. I think this is a huge first step. I'm not sure from an economic standpoint, if this makes sense for some of the premier musicians to be giving away 50% of their ownership, but certainly for newcomers or rising stars who want to build rabid fan communities, this is absolutely a use case to take a look at. So really excited to see what else is to come from Royal and their music NFTs. All right, third story, arguably the biggest story from the weekend. We're going to show a tweet from Loopify here. Adidas launching some NFT collaborations. So we've got some cryptic images here that surfaced on Twitter yesterday. First and foremost, we see the 3D Bored Ape here dressed in some Adidas gear. We see 3 logos along with the Adidas one. We see G Money, who is the famed cryptocurrency and NFT investor who's involved in this collab. We see the Bored Ape logo and then the Punks comic logo. And here we see one of the Punks comic characters here in the top right. And this is G Money here in the bottom right. So really big announcement. The market took notice. Biggest winner, Punks comic and the Meta Heroes. Punks comic up 46% day over day on the news. Meta Heroes up 45%. The BAYC floor up only about 8 to 10%, but it's steady at 49.50 ETH or so. So already up in the stratosphere. My take, this definitely seems like a sharp move for Adidas here. Had they just come out with a net new NFT drop, it would have been seen likely as a cash grab. Who knows what kind of popularity it would have had. But by collabing with 2 of the top communities and 2 of the top projects here, it shows a few things. It shows respect and homage to those projects. It also shows that, that they get it, that they're plugged in on the space and they understand who some of the biggest players and some of the best marketers are. And I do feel like they will be rewarded. There's already been chatter, there's already been photos surfacing from NFT influencers rocking their Adidas gear, talks of switching over from Nike, speculation if Nike will be able to follow suit on a collab of their own. So huge news, big splash for Adidas here. Also, kudos to these 2 project teams, Yuga Labs and the Punks Comics teams for getting this done. This is a big collab. All right, that's our top news. Let's get into the market. We're going to start by taking a look at the 7-day project rankings here from Lucky Trader and their rankings board. So top of the list, Bored Ape Yacht Club. They actually took the top spot here just in the last day. On the back of this Adidas news, their floor is at 49, like I mentioned. What's funny here is 5,400 ETH volume is actually down 70%, which is just absurd, but it just shows how big of a week they had in the week prior. Second on the board, we've got the Punks, always at the top of the board here, 4,700 ETH for them, although that's down 37% on the week. Their floor coming in at 83 here this morning. Third on the board, actually a new project that dropped just 3 to 4 days ago, the Littles, 10,000 mint project, minted out at 0.125, has done almost 4,000 ETH volume here in the past few days, floor steady at right around 0.3. We'll go ahead and take a look at their website here, thelittles.io. You can get a sense for what these NFT and PFP characters are like. They're essentially teddy bears, different traits, different characteristics that we're all pretty familiar with at this point with respect to these 10,000 PFP projects. It is an homage to youth. We're the Littles, very taking pride in going on adventures, not dealing with serious grown-up stuff, and that's reflected in their roadmap. They essentially don't offer any of a roadmap. And say, if that's what you're looking for, you came to the wrong place. If you're looking for adventures and fun, this is the project for you. You can just enjoy the art, the experience, the support, and the fun. Well, apparently that was enough for them to mint out at 0.125, which is a pretty hefty mint cost for the current market that we're in. I will say, I believe a big driver for that, if we continue to scroll down, is their 3 project partners. So they had ties to the Cyberkongs, Supducks, and Kaiju Kings, all top 25, top 30 projects there. So those ties certainly played a big part in these minting out. We'll be curious to see how these continue to hold up over time. Back to the board of covering a few new joiners. So Chain Runners made big headlines last weekend. Their floor got as high as 3 ETH, I want to say. Has been a steady decline here in the past few days as we continue to play somewhat of a hot potato in this current market. But they did 3,500 ETH here in the past 7 days, putting them fourth on the board. Fifth on the board, JRNY Club, that membership NFT, 3,500 ETH in the past week. Their floor steady there at 2 ETH. I'm going to skip over Wolf Game for now. Mutant Apes, 2,800, also down 70% like Bored Ape Yacht Club, but their floor up 10% on that Adidas collab news here just in the last 24 hours and sits at 6.5. The last big winner on the board, Box Collectibles. For anyone who's been following that project from Gala Games, it had a few months post mint that were in the drolls there. Floor was 0.2, 0.3. It has been just taking off in the last few weeks. The floor for the entire set is 1.9 and up 60% in the last week, as everything Gala touches is just absolutely ripping. Well, let's head back to Wolf Game. So you'll see Wolf Game migrated here in parentheses. For anyone following the show, the NFT markets, Wolf Game was absolutely the top story of last weekend. They dominated the board. They did something like 12K ETH in just the first 3 days. Well, then they ran into a series of exploits in their contracts. They had to pause the game. They paused staking their wool token. Essentially, it was unable. Users were unable to trade the NFTs for the better part of a week. They since migrated to a new contract, which you'll see this Wolfgram migrated is the new version. But on that unpause, we saw a significant drop here in the prices. So the floor had been artificially held up around 3.5 ETH for sheep for most of the past week. It tanked on the migration, sits at 0.6 now. The wool token is also down about 60% or so. I saw that 0.088 here this morning. I think a few of the reasons for Wolf Game, they had so much momentum, and then that multi-day pause just really hurt them a bit. As more it gave time for FUD to come in. The second aspect of it is the copycats and everyone chasing the next Ponzi. And that is a good seg here to our IC board here. Taking a look at the 3-day filtered by volume here. If we take a look at the top 10 projects, Wolf Game, Bear Game, Fox Game, Whale Game, all in the top 10. So essentially, these products have copied the Wolf Game code. They've slapped new characters and images and maybe slightly tweaked the storyline a bit, but essentially the same DeFi meets NFT yield farming staking game. And it's certainly impacting Wolf Game and their floor price as folks are leaving that game to try to seek returns in the new ones. We see the average price here for Bear Game at 0.37, Fox Game 0.36, the Whale Game 0.19. I believe the floors are certainly lower than that average price for each of these projects. I think my general take on what we're seeing here is a few things. So we're seeing some new projects have some rapid success, like Chain Runners, for instance, JRNY, but then seeing some rapid falls, just like Chain Runners ran to 3, back down to 1. It's definitely a bit of hot potato, as it feels like everyone's trying to make a quick buck and then move on to the next one. Certainly we're seeing that in these DeFi games, if we want to call them that, with Wolf Game and all their copycats now. And I feel like everyone chasing, quick returns is certainly impacting the broader market. We're not really seeing too many of the blue chips there in the top 10 outside of Bored Apes and CryptoPunks. And I think everyone chasing these new projects and these new DeFi games is certainly a big driver for that. And then as we take a look at the CloneX project that's going to be dropping from Artifact that we're going to highlight later in the show, that's going to suck potentially 10,000 to 15,000 ETH out of the ecosystem. It could be setting us up for, a continued red on the board here this month, but we'll cover that here in a little bit. That's our market recap, both from the 7-day and the 3-day here. Let's start to get into some of our rotating segments. We are going to go into one-of-ones. The first piece I'm going to highlight here, Superhuman by the artist Guido, selling for 22 ETH to 33 Vault 33, building certainly one of the top collections of anyone here in super rare space. The artist Guido, renowned photographer and artist, their bio states, "I make iconic imagery of people, places, and things." Essentially, it's photo NFTs with models and different poses or whatnot. Guido's had a lot of success here in the past month, one of the top sellers for sure. The next piece I'm going to highlight here in what was certainly, I'd say, a slower week in the one-of-one space, at least on super rare. This piece called Flow. The artist is Dom Queck. Essentially, it's a 3D sculpture. You can grab the image and rotate it around and look at it from different angles. I'd say what makes this piece notable is the buyer. So Cosmo de Medici is the buyer of this piece, bought it for 8 ETH just 2 days ago, and then went on to make a Twitter post about it, how he feels that 3D sculptures in digital art will be one of the biggest new forms that will hold value in this space. And certainly putting their money where their mouth is with this purchase. So this was interesting to see, and certainly will be interesting to see what other sculptures that we start to see in the digital art space. Last story I'll cover in super rare and one-of-ones is just highlighting the collection of Zen Vault. So I want to say this collection is tied to Zeneca 33, who is riding high off the back of his NFT drop that ended just last week. I want to say he raised somewhere between 3 and 4 million with his paid Discord NFT. That being said, he has started to get into the one-of-one collection space. If this is Zeneca, and I have to tip my hat. 3 really nice purchases here in the last week here. We see these 2 on the left from the artist Gutty Cream. It's that pixelated animated view, kind of similar to Searlight in some ways, but certainly Gutty Cream has been catching a lot of attention here in the past few months. And then this animated piece from Ayla Al Musa with the crashing waves that was purchased, I want to say, for 9 ETH or so. So Zeneca, kudos, 3 nice purchases here in the past week. A few other notable sales. So Hypermorph by Neurocolor sold for 20 ETH. Botto had their weekly drop. This one called Cross Ado. It sold for 18.88 ETH. Drive Me by Annabelle Sick for 15 ETH, also to 33 Vault. And 33 Vault also purchased Node by Jesse Drexler for 13 ETH. So big week for 33 Vault. All right, that's one-of-ones. Let's move into blue chip PFPs. So we're going to start with the Punk sales board. As always, it starts and ends with the Crypto Punks. Been a quiet week. So if we look at the last 7 days, I think we're sitting around 40, 44 sales or so. Really not too many highlights on the upper end. So we saw a Hoodie Punk go for 217, which is well below what they've been going for. The top sale on the week is this albino with sunglasses for 275 ETH, 1.2 million. Yeah, certainly the top sale on the board here from the past 7 days. The majority of the remainder of these are at floor or slightly above, and that 10 to 20% above floor space. And that floor does continue to drop. So we'll take a look at all of the blue chip PFPs on the WGMI.io board here. So CryptoPunks right at 84 ETH, down 2%. So holding steady on the week for the most part. One of the top performers at holding steady, as we'll see here in a second. CyberKong's Genesis down 16% on the week. Their floor at 82.69 right now. We talked about Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're at 48.99 right now, up 10% on the week. Again, on the back of that Adidas collab news. As we continue to scroll down here, let's take a look at some of the ones sub 10. So Cool Cats NFT at 7.65, up 5.8% on the week. I have to say, Cool Cats are holding really, really strong. I think there is a lot of speculation around their milk token and some of the gamification that they've got coming, especially after seeing all the success that Wolf Game and their copies have had. Where a lot of the lower end products have been bleeding in the last month, Cool Cats has been holding fairly steady. And I think they will certainly do very well in the next bull market. And I think even just the drop of the milk token could be huge for that product. So definitely one that I'm closely watching. We hit Mutant Apes. They're at 6.5, also up 10% on the week. CyberKong's at 4.89, down 10%. Gutter Cat Gang at 4, actually with a solid week for them, 5.8%. Cryptodes, rough week. We're bleeding in the Cryptodes world. 3.4 ETH floor, down 14% on the week. And then Meebits holding fairly steady there at 3.4. Last one we'll cover, Doodles. Doodles also steady on the week, right at 2.98. So that is our blue chip PFP roundup there. Overall, I don't know if there's enough ETH in the environment to sustain all these new projects and this hot potato that we're seeing users play with the new drops and these Wolf Game clones. And I think we'll see that continue to impact these blue chip PFPs, especially with this Clone X drop starting the week out here today. All right, let's go to Art Blocks. We'll start with the WGMI board and head back up to the top. I think the general theme for Art Blocks is also some red on the board this week. So Fidenza's got as high as 130. They're down to 110 here, down 12% or so on the week. Ringers are steady, but really no liquidity in that market right now. Elevated Deconstruction's down 26% as that floor drops to 42. Archetypes back at 14.7. They're down 13% from that 17 ETH high. Unigrid's fairly steady at 10.5. Subscapes definitely dropping still, down at 8 ETH floor, minus 18% on the week. The Meridians are back to 6.99. Chromie Squiggles had dropped as low as 5.6, but are now back to 6.8 this morning, still down 20% on the week. Fermenties have fallen a bit from their high. They're down to a 6 ETH floor. Singularities are down a bit, back to 5. Fragments down to 4.6. Kind of rounding out the board here. So we continue to see some dropping. The Art Blocks world out of the top 20 for NFT projects here in the past week. So much less liquidity and market attention right now. It is to be seen, what trigger events we may need to get that Art Blocks volume back up. Whether that be whale action, a really strong curated drop, potentially Coinbase users. I don't know. We'll see. But certainly we're going to need some type of a trigger to pull ourselves out of this downtrending market. We do have a project dropping here today, here at 12 p.m., just in 37 minutes, that I'll highlight. It's called Bent by the artist IPP Sketch. It's 1,023 supply, Dutch auction as always. Quick description of the project. Lines are bent and shaded. There are no wrong turns. It's interactive in a live view, and you can move the piece around. The Dutch auction starts at 6 ETH. It drops all the way to 0.1, dropping in price every 5 minutes. Kind of based on where the last few auctions have ended, I'm going to go ahead and call the over-under for today's at 1.2 ETH, and I won't be surprised if it goes sub 1. A part of that is based on the Asimica drop. Asimica now sits at a 0.25 floor. So anyone who participated in that mint certainly reeling a bit as that minted out at 2. But of course, if the drop gets botted, that can always impact the mint out price. I'll highlight a few of the mints though from the artist. He posted this on his Twitter feed. We've got about 12 of the samples from Rinkby here. There's some nice pieces. If you take a look, the vibe I get is very similar to Edifice. If you hadn't told me these were new drop and I was just saying these in a vacuum, I actually would have said that these were from that Edifice drop. So a lot of overlap there. Edifice doing very well. 3.8 ETH floor here for that project. But given how similar this is, and again, given the market sentiment, I don't have super high expectations for where this will mint out. But we'll be certainly watching here as this auction starts in 35 minutes. All right. Well, that's Art Blocks. Let's go ahead and highlight maybe the biggest drop of this week, maybe of the month here with Artifacts Clone X drop. So we'll scroll through their website, talk a bit about the project. So from them, Clone X is our most ambitious project yet, the beginning of a whole ecosystem for our community, quality focused, high-end avatars ready for the metaverse. So they get into their story a little bit. Founded by 3 extraterrestrials who came from the planet of Orbitar in the Draco constellation, these interplanetary tourists have come to accelerate our evolution towards an immaterial existence. So we can gauge from this background here, essentially that we are looking at some extraterrestrial digital avatars here for this NFT. A bit about the drop mechanics. So there are 20,000 in supply, 8 different DNA types. There's a sale. The sale is split between pre-sale and the public sale. And then anything not redeeming the pre-sale will move over to public. So they are looking to sell about 20,000 of these. 11,000 or so are available in the pre-sale at 0.05 ETH. And these are to reward the existing artifact collectors. So if you own one of their eligible NFTs, you qualify for 3 reserved spots to buy and mint these Clone X at 0.05. Why would you do that? Well, right now the floor on secondary is 3.6 ETH and moving in the mid 3s. So a serious reward for previous artifact holders here at what is that 60x almost right off the mint price. So certainly total incentive to mint this for anyone who's qualified. So definitely go take a look at that. And then the public sale has 8,300 allocated to it. But as I checked secondary, only about 2,400 have been minted or so. So I'll be curious how high the public sale goes. It is going to be a Dutch auction. I think they're still finalizing the pricing, but expectations are this one's going to mint out at a fairly high price. So certainly we will be watching here for the drop at 4 o'clock today to see what that final price is. Here you can see the allocation, and the team is keeping 2.5% of the supply. A bit more, so a collaboration with Murakami. So the artist that they're working on this with is Takashi Murakami, special collaborator. You can see his iconic designs here. On this part of the website, you can see some examples of the NFTs and the PFPs and what some of these characteristics and what some of their clothing and different traits look like. I'll admit they look really cool. One of the better looking 3D avatars that we've seen so far in the space. And then, what really caught my attention was some more details on their roadmap. So for the cornerstones, metaverse ready. These are going to be, you're going to get your 3D files to use these across metaverse platforms. Clone X wearables, a dedicated clone inventory, new collection drops to be able to customize your avatars, forging events to get in real life clothing like jackets, and then special access to the ecosystem and Clone X experiences. But one piece of the roadmap, if you scroll across here on the bottom of the page, you can see that the first piece in their trajectory is the Meta 3D Vault, but the second one is what caught my attention. It's called Clone X Space Pods. Your space to customize and upgrade to show off your NFTs and hang out with your clone friends in space, powered by OnCyber, exclusive to Clone X owners. So OnCyber, famous for their 3D art galleries, which have kind of caught steam. They've got the free and the paid ones, now collabing with Clone X to have these pods, essentially for avatars to hang out. We haven't seen this yet. This is a really cool concept. I'm intrigued by this one. We'll absolutely be watching the auction, and if it gets to a reasonable price point, I'll be certainly looking to move on this one. But huge drop, certainly might have some impacts to the ecosystem, as I alluded to. If this sells out at 2 ETH, that's 16,000 ETH sucked out of the NFT market going to Artifact. As we've seen this in the past, it's led to many bears. Hopefully that's not the case this time, but certainly something for our listeners to potentially prepare for. All right, that's the upcoming drop. Check that one out. Lastly, for today, I want to tell the people's story. So I'm going to go ahead and show this token chart. hopefully, folks who listen to our show or been following NFT Twitter, right? One of the biggest stories in the last few weeks was Constitution DAO. We talked about it on the show. They went to the Sotheby's auction to bid on the Constitution, was super hyped, caught almost the entire NFT Twitter's attention, so much attention for DAOs. They ultimately lost. They did not win the Constitution. They had $40 million essentially they had to figure out how to refund. Users had, I think the average price that people put in was like $240 or something. So we know gas fees are super high. So they spent some time trying to figure out how to best refund the users who donated without making them lose it all in gas. They finally landed on people tokens. And I forget the exact number, but there was a certain allocation per ETH that you received your donation back in people tokens. Right off the bat, some folks went ahead and just cashed their people tokens out. They got their money back. But then a few days later, the market decided they wanted to pump the people's token, and pump it did. So just a week ago, right out of the gate, the people token was 0.004 US dollars. It then proceeded to go up about 35x at peak. It got as high as 0.158. So anyone who just held their people's tokens, let's say they committed 1 ETH to Constitution DAO, it was then worth 35 ETH from the pump in the market of the people's token. It has since retraced a bit and is showing a bit of a downward trajectory. It's around 0.75 here, 0.075 this morning as we're live here. But as we think about the meme tokens that are out there in the cryptocurrency world and what's taken off, I mean, what's a more powerful meme than the people? So it'll be very curious if this one maintains its steam, if the Constitution DAO somehow is able to capitalize on this. I mean, their market cap reached 700 million at one point. Certainly it's back down a bit as the tokens dropped in value, but certainly some real buying power with the people's tokens, and a lot of eyes on this. Will be very curious to see what's to come. All right. Well, that is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday to recap the week with Skyhook. And then we've got an interview lined up with the team behind Society of the Hourglass to talk some innovative things that they're doing. So tune in for that. Till then, stay safe in those NFT streets. Goodbye.